happened. I don't know. The YouTube dashboard just didn't want to load for some reason. So I restarted the stream. I think we should be good now. So today I will continue with the geometry nodes. So to flesh out the environment, the landscape thing here that we're creating. And in a little bit, I think Henning is going to join as well. It's going to be nice. It's always more fun when you're two for streaming. Oh. There we go. I forgot my mic. That would be why you couldn't hear me. Better? Streaming is hard, you know. There's so many things you have to keep in mind. Okay. Okay, now I don't know how many are here from last time, but I made some changes. There's not so much changes, I've just updated a few things in the geometry notes. So I'll just quickly try to go through those. So what you're seeing here right now is I've loaded in a few different assets and they're all getting scattered on the ground here. Let's see. So we've got some pine, some birch, some fern, a couple different types of rocks. I'll probably axe these. They're more designed for cliffs, so like cliff rocks. So they look kind of weird and out of place in a way. And the other ones here, the tiny ones, I think I'll scale those down. But essentially what I've done, if we look at our geometry nodes, this is our original node for the birch trees. And you can see we've added a lot more inputs, and these inputs just are from the fern, from the pine, and the rocks. But let me just try and take you through this setup real quick so you have an understanding of what's going on here. One of the big things that I did was I changed the way the scale works in the system. So if we just take the birch group here as an example, we have S for scale and S min for scale minimum. And if we jump over to our settings, you can see, that we're able to change the scale of the birch here. So you can scale that, and it scales, so everything, remember there's like a random value here after the scale, so everything gets a random scale value. But everything scales proportionally, so if one birch tree has a scale of 0.5 and the other one has a scale of 1, that ratio will be, it'll be kept when we scale up. But in order to change that, we can play around with the scale minimum. So that way, we can say, okay, actually, scale, do a bigger difference, like increase the ratio between small and big, which is nice. Obviously, don't go into the negative, but yeah, that's something you can do with this system now. The trees are not generated with nodes. All the trees and all the meshes, they're out here. You could generate those with nodes as well, but for this, I've just bought a pack from a talented artist on Flipnormals, and I'm using her assets because they're really lovely. But anyway, this is how the scale works, and I've just defined a ratio of 2 to 1, I think. So This here is the min scale, and that's the max scale. And you can see that it says, the only thing I've done is I've inputted, or I've added 2 map ranges, and they just map from 5,000 and from 10,000. The problem with the geometry nodes and the scale of these meshes was that in order to have the scale value here be scaled down to like a reasonable amount or a reasonable size, this value had to be like 0.001 or something, not a very workable number. So I plugged in a map range and I changed the from value from this was 1 and 1 to be different. So the minimum value that comes in here is smaller than the max one, but they're so large that when we translate them over to values over here, we actually have a workable value. So if we just, like imagine we did this, so this would be kind of what we had before. You can see how large the trees are. In order to have something workable, you will need to scale these down to like, 0.001, and still it's too large. So you don't really have a big range in terms of scale you can play with. So that's why I created this map range. And the map range is the same for everything, because the assets are in the same scale. You could individually change this ratio. And that's another thing. You can change the actual ratio. I think I might have done that for some of the others. No, I kept it at 5, I think. Okay. Yeah, I kept it at, okay. So I kept the ratio to 2:1. But you could, you could change that, and you could even make that an input in our geometry nodes as well. You could have a global scale ratio, for example. But I think, I want to try and keep it as minimal as possible while still having a lot of functionality. So that's one thing, that's one change. So let's collapse these back down. They feed into a random value, which goes into scale. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I changed how the density works. So before we just had a global density, which turns out was annoying, because it's nice to be able to exceed the global density and go below the global density per collection. I sort of found out, especially when you were playing around, I was playing around with ferns down here. I wanted, like, when it comes to vegetation, grass, flowers, that kind of stuff, you want more of that, or more of those than you want trees, right? Trees have to be more sparse. And so the way I would have to do it before was crank up the global density and then go into the density for each and then sort of decrease it, which wasn't very intuitive. So now you can set a global density, which just defines, there's going to be this much of everything, or you can take it away, which is like our base density. And then you can go in and say, well, actually for the fern here, let's say density fern, you can see I've upped it to 300. You can say 600 to double that density, for example. The way that works is, before we had density max. Density max was just going to our global density. And this was the case for all of these groups or all these collections. So when we changed the global density, it would change the density max by the same amount for everything, for our trees, our rocks, our plants. But by inserting a multiply here, let me show you what I've done here. There we go. So by inserting the multiply here, we can change our ratio of how we do this. So you can see right here it's set to 10, and that's the same number as we have in our global density out here. So this just multiplies this value down here. The density birch gets multiplied by the global density. And this is the same for our rocks, everything. All of these just get multiplied by our global density, which is nice because then you have something that you can actually work with, and you can say, actually, I want a sparse landscape in general, and then start cranking up other values. And that's the sort of the thing about geometry nodes, you can just keep going back and forth, optimizing and thinking of different ways to do things. I think now we're in a good spot, and so that's something that I played around with, and then obviously I've imported some other assets as well. One of the things that I want to do today is populate the floor, the forest floor, with some of the smaller vegetation, bushes, some flowers, a little bit of grass, some bushes maybe, and there are still other assets that I want to import as well. And while I was thinking through this, I might make this whole geometry setup available on Flip Normals, maybe just like for a couple bucks. So you can buy that, and then essentially you have a ready to go system for all kinds of vegetation. All you would need to do is you have these inputs. I would obviously clean this up because right now it's very messy. So I would probably go in and I would group things like this so it's easier to get an overview. But then all you would have to do is essentially, let's say you have the birch group here. You just take this collection of birch, which is here, and you just put in whatever you want. Maybe it's, I don't know, squirrels or birds or fish or other plants that you could plug in, for example. So it's pretty useful, I think, and it's a very versatile geometry node right now. But I want to deck it out even more and try and get to a more complete result. So that's kind of what I'll focus on now. All right, no Henning for today, so it'll just be me and you guys. But cool. Let's see. One thing I was thinking about playing around with was for the ferns down here. Being able to do, especially for bushes and smaller plants, I was thinking it would be cool if you could clump them together, so to sort of make a clumping value. I'm not entirely sure how to do that. I have an idea about some noise, but again, learning experience for me when it comes to geometry nodes, so we'll kind of have to see. This whole density node here is set up with the Poisson disk, so with that option enabled, you're able to pipe in a vertex group, for example. So you could weight paint something on your map, say I just want ferns over here, and then plug that in. That's why I've chosen that, but that's obviously a very manual process, but it's great to have that freedom down the line. But for now, I still want to keep it procedural. So I want to see if there's some way I can plug in some kind of noise texture to mess around with the density. But I'm not entirely sure if that'll work. But we'll see. So we just have straight up noise textures here. And that is our fern. So if anyone knows of a great way to do this, please let me know. So we have our density max. What I want to try is would that even work? Because then this just accepts a value, right? And this is a color. That is interesting. Geometry node. I'm 100% sure someone has probably done this before. Let's have a look. What happens though if we no, it doesn't accept that. Let's have a look. Let's see, geometry nodes, clumping, maybe. Let's see here. Instancing, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's on the instance endpoints. Let's have a look. Yeah, that would be, wouldn't it? Because we're using a using the object info. I guess the question becomes, how do we modify the object info in a way, or not the object info, the random values. Noise. Maybe the noise needs to get converted first. Oh, this is where my knowledge falls apart. I'll look into that in a bit, I think, instead of just staring at the screen and not producing any content. Okay, well, think about that and see what we can come up with. So for now, let's store our density. We need that, okay. Oh yeah, I mean, if anyone has any questions or anything while we're doing this, feel free to ask. So I think I'll make I imported a bunch of different kinds of grass, one type of bush. So I think we can combine some of this to speed up our process a little bit. So let's see, what should we pick? We have our fern, and I think we can combine our fern maybe with our bushes here. So what we can do is we can move this into our fern group. It's the fern and bush group. And they need to have their rotation locked. There we go. So now it's scattering those bushes with the fern all around. I think something we can do to help ourselves a lot here is get rid of this white ground. So shader editor, make a new material for the ground. And if I remember correctly, I think this asset pack actually comes with some ground textures as well. Ground dry. Ground dry doesn't sound like what we'll need. That's just dirt, and we have ground flat as well. More dirt. Ground rough. Ground small rocks. Ground rough. We've got ground rough. Flat. Flat is looking. Flat looks good. Let's try that. Flat. Let's see. Oh yeah, another thing that happened off stream was I just downloaded an HDRI from Polyheaven, I think. It's a site with a bunch of free everything, assets, HDRI, Polyhaven. Polyhaven, that's the one. This great site, they have a lot of stuff. Okay, so this is where we are now. It's starting to look decent, I think. It's a funny mix, right, of birch. I mean, obviously, birch does grow in the same area where pine can grow. Usually, they wouldn't grow. They wouldn't intersect this much. It would be like you would have a dedicated birch area with some pine, or a dedicated pine area with some birch. But I think we'll stick to this for now. It adds a lot of variety to our scene. One thing I've done as well, shader-wise, I've added a translucency map to the leaves, basically to everything foliage-wise. I've added translucency, so our HDR, when it shines through, the other objects on it cast shadows, so we have this, well, translucent look on our leaves. It just helps create some realism, and it's a really easy trick to do. Let me just show you real quick. So all you need, take a tree here. What I've done is, this is just a mask to cut out all the branches, because these are done with planes. It's not actual geometry as such. So I've just masked out the branches here because we don't want translucency on the branches. Hey Chris. And so that's just a mask. You can ignore that really. But what I've done is I've just taken the exact same texture, and then I feed it into a translucent BSDF, add shader, and then I combine those two shaders into one and plug them into the surface. The nice thing about this setup is you can, let me show you, go back into our render viewport here. Okay. Let's find a good, okay, that's a good shot. Could add a hue and saturation to this right here, and say, you know, I don't want the translucency to be as strong. Then you take this down to half, for example. You want to change it, the way the color reacts. You can make it more yellow. more red if you wanted to make it real freaky. Alien planet. I think, I mean, for now, the default value is fine for me, but this might be something that I go in and adjust later. But, you know, this is what it looks like right now. And I mean, I don't know. I think it's starting to look pretty great. When we look at our reference out here, we're using a desert reference or a desert HCRI-ish. So the vegetation is a little yellow, but you don't really see that in our vegetation. The cool thing about this whole setup is, I mean, this would be perfect for like a flyby. Obviously, these assets they're game assets, so they're more low res, and they wouldn't hold up as such if you get too close. It looks gamey, but that could work as well. But I think as a flyby, for example, this is really cool. And then, you know, if you use this geometry setup, for example, and you just needed something really quick, just slap it onto your geometry and plug in your assets, and then, I mean, then you're basically good to go. But let's flesh this out a little more, because our forest floor is looking very sparse, I would say. So let's have a look. Head back into the geometry nodes editor and let me just try and group these actually. So that's going to be our birch group. Yeah. This was our small rocks. And the nice thing about nodes in this way is that this is the same input. You could just pipe everything into this input if you wanted to, but this, I don't know, this can help organize a little bit. What you can do is you can hold down Control H, and then just it hides all the inputs for the things that you don't use for this particular one. But then, you know, you can make this pretty clean. And this was pine. Oh. Then we have density cliff. So this one I might switch out actually, because I don't think we're not getting a lot from these cliffs here. So I'll do something different with those. And this was fern, bush. You can see you can start to really quickly organize this. Okay, so instead of the cliffs here, let's switch it out for, let's see, what do we want to combine? Maybe the grass here, the reeds, I think it is, with whatever this is. This looks nice. So this is our, oops. Grass plantain. And the reeds. Plop that into that group there. And then we'll swap that out here. So instead of cliffs, we'll just do grass plantain. Let's see. Might not be a good idea to combine those, but let's see. It's gonna be our cliffs. Let's see. Density 100. Scale of 1. Again, rotation. Always make sure to check that your rotation is actually baked or applied. So we'll do rotation for those. And okay, that's weird. Just noticing that the origin is all the way up there for these guys. Origin is in the center for that. Cool. Okay. So I'm just moving the origins in. Otherwise, they're going to spawn in weird places. There we go. Looks to be the same with the rotation value for these. So if we take a look now, let's see. Okay. Get this combination of reeds. Change the random scale or the minimum scale a little bit. So because of the ratio, if you want it to be equal, you could take the min scale and set that to 2. Now everything is like the same. By setting both to 1, like the min scale and scale, you have that 2-to-1 ratio built in from the beginning, which might be fine for this actually. But I don't know if it's good to combine this plantain with the reeds. Let's have a look. Starting to look cool though. It's like that balance between how much freedom do you want, individual freedom over all assets, compared to like how efficiently do you want to be about just scattering foliage, vegetation on the ground. Whoops. You can drop the global density down as well. I want to figure out how to do a viewport one. So sort of like the same thing you have with particles, right? Where you have viewport density versus render density. I'm sure someone has cracked that nut as well. What I want to try though is I'm going to take the reeds here and I'll move those back into their own. Collection, and we'll take the reeds instead. That way we'll just use those. I think that's going to be better. Then we have the bushes and grass. And make sure to also check out the website, while you're awake. Flipnormals.com we're having a summer sale at the moment, up to 70% off of tutorials, assets, everything. I think we have something like 23 or 24,000 products on sale right now, so it's pretty massive. Okay, let's see. Now, what else do we have? This is our asset pack. Moss pile. Plant bush. Bushes are great because they're small but dense, so they're a really great way to fill out your forest floor. Rock flat. We could have more variation in terms of the trees. See here, there's some Douglas fir as well. So let's try to pull in some of that actually and see. So this is the pine, and what we'll do is we'll pull in some of that Douglas. The mature or young, let's do the mature ones. We have 4 of those. Oh, that's great. Move them up to the. Always remember to import to the right collection. There we go. Mm-hmm. Oh, right. We are in origins mode. I guess you could do like a switch or something. So the nice thing about this pack is that it comes with basically a proxy, like proxy geometry. So you could maybe create a switch or something where you view the proxy geometry instead of the full res one. Yeah. Anyway. Smooth this out. I think that's going to look cool, getting these in as well. Now, for the interesting part, textures. Yes, we have bespoke textures for the fur. Fur, mature, mature, mature. Okay. What I might do is, seeing as we won't have another audio input, let me just enable my music. This is what I'm listening to. I don't know about the volume of this, obviously. I just hear what I'm hearing. I don't know what it'll be like on stream, but I haven't turned it up too high. Okay, no luck there. Oh my god. Textures, fur. That doesn't look quite right. Let me go hunting for this. Oh, okay, it's just the bark. Got it. I think this is just going to be using the pine needles or not. Oh, there you go. Found it. Da, 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 da. There we go. That's the correct one. Hey Tiago, nice to see you. I hope all is well. Good, good. I am playing around with geometry nodes in Blender, trying to create a pretty much fully procedural environment through nodes, just using nodes. So this is where we're at right now. Let me show you. This is what it looks like. Obviously not fully procedural because the meshes over here are generated by an artist, but everything's getting plugged into a geometry node system that we can modify the density, the scale, rotation, you know, a bunch of things. So this is what we have to work with right now. So right now I'm just trying to focus on the forest floor, trying to populate it a little bit, make it a little more interesting. Obviously performance is, even with a Titan, there's a lot of geometry here now, but I don't know. I think it's starting to look pretty interesting. And then we might go in with some more bespoke assets afterwards, after we have all the surrounding stuff and art directed a little more, create a scene. That's where we're at. One thing I'm noticing though is our reeds here. I don't think they have translucency on, but I'll tackle that in a sec. I'm curious about this though. If you're having issues with your alpha channels in your viewport, by the way, you can go down to settings and change it to alpha hashed. If you have an alpha map on your shader, it does this for your transparent planes. You can actually see what you're doing. So now we actually have some density on our pine here. What we need now is our normal map. And always make sure to change your normal map to a raw linear format. It could be non-color, linear, raw. They will do the same thing. Now, one thing that I've noticed with these, I think because these are made for Unreal, you actually, I don't know if it's just because that's the way Unreal handles normal maps, but in Blender, the green channel has to be flipped compared to these. So the way you can do that is you just take your normal map, again, change your color space to linear, and put in an RGB curves node, go to the green channel, and we just flip the green channel. There we go. So now we have correct normal behavior. This is what our normal map looks like now compared to before. So you can see it's just getting flipped. That's all there is to it. I think a better example might be these pines over here. So you can see how the normals are getting pushed out. If I select our bark, I've actually forgotten to do it here. So the needles, you don't notice it that much, but you know, I should be consistent. So if you go to the bark one here and we invert that, you can see how it like flips our normals. Now there's shadows on the top, even though our lighting is from the top. So we flip that normal map. Flipping the normals. Just, you know, had to get that in there. Feel free to close the stream now. That would be, I'm okay with that. And now we have to figure out the bark for this one. What is the bark for the first? Oh, okay. We have a bespoke bark for mature. There we go. Close that. And we just gotta make sure that our spec value is within normal bounds. And 0.75. Changing, I'm just changing the roughness because I don't know, these roughness values looked a little bit sketchy. Like it's a very shiny pine tree or fir. That's a pine, that's a fir. Same, but different. Okay, and we need a normal map. Here we'll probably be able to tell a little bit better as well. So it just, you know, let's do this. It just looks wrong. It's hard to explain. When you look at it, it's like it looks off. So again, let's do this. And now if we, that's the new and corrected version. That's before. You can see like it looks inverted somehow. But there you go, this is our correct behavior. So if you ever have issues with that, your normal map's looking weird in Blender, you can always use this trick. And I think it's a little intense, so I will probably tone it down as well. I don't know, I would probably go there. So look with lights on. See how that looks. Interesting. For this texture, no, it's still weird. It's still casting shadows upwards. Okay, so this is what we'll do. Whoops. And then we'll lower this. Maybe to there. There we go. And even though this is pine needles, I guess is it still pine needles if it's on a fir? I don't know. I will add translucency to this as well. For that though, I think we'll just do this real quick. We're gonna have to modify the texture slightly to get that to work. So, this is the way I've been doing it, by the way, in order to mask out any branches. Oops. There we go. So we have our alpha channel here, and then anything that has a branch on it, essentially, I'm just masking out. And because we're scattering, it's like, it'll be rough. It's not gonna be super pretty. It's more just to, like, if I can eliminate most of the branches, I'm fine with that. Let's see if we can't. See if this will work. Definitely didn't work. No. Magic wand. Let's give that a go. What do we have here? Getting closer. That's the way to go. Okay, there we go. Mask that out. Then we'll save this. Fur. Okay. And let's just copy our setup from up here. So what we'll do is we'll load in our newly created mask here. Load that in. I have an invert because that's just, the mask needs to be inverted compared to what we have to work with. And then I'll plug in my color, and then that'll be cut out based on our mask. That is very hard to see here, but trust me, that's what's happening. And we'll plug this into our surface. We'll combine the two, and then we'll just double check in our shader viewport. You can see it happening a little bit there. Let's see. If we do this now, it should be happening. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm doing it on the bark. That's probably why. I was struggling to see a difference. let's try this again. Take our mask in. And let's just fix our bark as well. There we go. So take our mask in, it looks like this, cool. Then we invert it, so it looks like that. Then we mix that with our color, like so. Keep the other input black. Transparency, our translucency. Combine the two shaders, and there we go. Now we can see it. Now, for pine, this might be too much. I don't know. But we'll leave it as it is for now. I think that's gonna be fine. We can always adjust it, right? So it does look a little, something looks off in here. The way that the shadows are being cast, like it's just completely black, but whatever. Okay, so we have our setup there. One thing we should take a look at is our spec value. Always check that. Like a spec value of 1, it's unrealistic. Spec should always be 0.5, unless you're tweaking it for some specific purpose. Other than that, keep it there. And let's be realistic. When it comes to translucency, pine needles would not be that translucent because they're not a flat object, right? They're quite dense compared to a leaf, but you know, it looks kind of nice. So let's see, bark. We have the same to work with here. So we'll do fir, bark, and we'll have fir needles. Let's try that again. Needles. Fir bark and fir needles. Nice. I wonder if this would work. Nice, it does. Okay, cool. And because we made that mask, we're not getting any translucency on these branches. Let me show you. So if we didn't have the mask, we just plug the color directly into here, we would get this. Now this is strange, like this definitely wouldn't work, right? Any GeoNode tutorials on how to create flames? Not from me, but let me think. It's doable. It's definitely doable. You could take some noise textures. You could do it as a 2D kind of spread. You could do 3D noise actually. Yeah, you could do 3D noise and then move that with like through the translation and the noise. Just move it in the Z direction, for example. That could be a way of doing it. That could be interesting to look into actually. How do you see AI rise, replace all the complex procedural workflows in 3D? I guess it's not an easy task for AI. It's a tough question because there are a lot of mundane tasks in 3D that I think should be replaced by AI, you know. But it's obviously tricky because people still need jobs, but it's like with anything, it's I think the evolution of AI, it's so fast, so it's so hard to predict. I mean, I don't think it's going to be more than a few years, if that, before we start seeing real good text to 3D. Just considering how fast the progress has been for things like Midjourney, for example, seeing the results there. Obviously, there's still like some AI-ness to the images, but give it 6 months to a year, and those things could very easily be be worked out. Whether it's a good thing or not, that's besides the point. But yeah, I think it will happen for sure, because I mean you can program your way out of so many things now, and with the advent of AI, it's just gonna be so much faster. I think the tricky thing there is what you're also seeing with some of the AI tools that are there now, especially the ones that are trained on just not publicly available assets, so to speak, but just scraped assets, right? It's a company is not going to touch it because you can't legally use it. You don't have the permissions for an AI to be trained on that material, so you would need loads of material that's actually approved, and you're like, okay, cool, I can license this to train my AI. That definitely slows down the, let's call it, progress of that. But I mean, it's hard. I mean, I don't know. It's just a guess for me, you know. So you still, yeah, exactly, like Asim is saying, you still need knowledge of 3D to give it the right commands and stuff. But I think eventually it will probably take over. So why learn 3D at all? I don't think it's happening yet, not to that degree, not to replace artists in studios creating games or commercials or films. But at the end of the day, companies are still interested in their bottom line, and if they can optimize that in some way by getting rid of 1,000 artists in the workplace, eventually I could see that happening. Unless they sort of get together and everyone is like, nope, we can't have that. But I don't know, I see that as kind of unlikely. Sorry for the downer reply, but yeah. Grass. Do we have an alpha channel for this? We do. So we're just creating a translucency mask for the reeds as well. And that's the same deal, really, as before. Take this, plug that in, which is also going to update that and that. I think that uses the same one. Wait, why doesn't that? Wait a minute. So this is using new grass. Okay. This is using new grass as well. And this is using new grass. New grass. Okay, let's take Oh, is this just... Yes, yarrow, yarrow, yarrow. There we go. Now we have some... I mean, look at the difference this makes, right? Sorry, GTA Online. Someone has to ask. Look at this. This is the difference with and without the translucency on there. It makes a massive difference. So I try to always do this. It's a very simple setup whenever I do any kind of work with foliage. Okay. Now where were we? Oh, right. We had the pines here. That's where we were. Oh, don't crash. Save. I mean, it's fine to ask questions about AI. It's not that. But it's very hard to obviously predict. No one can really predict it. Okay. We could combine the fir with the pine. Obviously, they're very different scale. Let's have a look. Let's try it. Let's give it a shot. One sec. Okay, so let's try and move these firs into our pine collection. Oh, they're toppled. Once again, foiled by the rotation. Just gotta check our origins. All good. Lock rotation. You can see how tiny they are. So what we'll do is we'll sort of bring these into scale. I think we'll take these. What's the best way to do this? What? That is bizarre. There we go. Whoa. Active element, nope. Recently having a lot of trouble with the right topology. Any tips? Most of the hard surface modeling I'm doing with these has creases where it's visible that I made an edge loop there. Oh, no, sorry. That's really hard to give advice on. Maybe do you have a more specific example? Maybe I can try and answer that. Oh, I see. Yeah, Eddie, summer sale is on. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now they're more sort of in line when it comes to scale. I think I'll modify the pine min scale though, so they're not drastically different. We can make them taller. They're sort of growing above our birch, even though birch, I guess, does grow quite large. Okay. So, right, let's populate this ground again. Let's see where we're at with the system here. Density of rocks. Scale. And something I think could help us a lot. Whoa. Is just to undulate the terrain a little bit. I think that would be nice now. Okay, not as many pine. No, it's I mean, you can see my computer struggling as well. It's definitely not having the best of times. But that's why, like, whenever I don't preview it, I lower the density so I don't have to work with a scene that's this heavy. This is, you know, this is starting to look pretty cool. And the birch is very white, but that's fine. Thanks. It's nice, starting to look nice here on the floor. Okay. So yeah, whenever I'm not previewing this, I'll just lower this so I don't have to contend with the lag. Ba, 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 ba. Pine group rocks, and then we had this one, which was our density. And our density, we did grass reeds, which is just the reeds. Okay, so reeds group. Then we had the fern and bush group here. Nice. Now I think we need some color. And I know that this pack has some flowers in it as well. There's a bush called a barberry. Let's check that out. What is that? That and then some flowers, I think would be good. Let's see if we can't put that. Okay, barberry. Nice, that looks like it's going to be able to add a decent amount of volume. And yeah, barberry has its own set of textures. Okay. Oops, and that does add a little bit of color, which is nice. Oh. Interesting. There we go. It's nice with a bit of contrast in the color, so it's not just all green. For this one, that doesn't look right. Oh, that looks very wrong. That looks more right. Okay, cool. Like with everything else. Damn it. We have to paint out the stems for this one as well. Okay, a little bit easier this time, I think. You know what, this is silly. I have a tablet right in front of me and I'm doing it with a mouse. Think. That should just about do it. There we go. Okay. Back into Blender. Let's take that whole setup. I mean, you could also just make this into a node group, for example. So you just load in one node group for this with the inputs for the texture. That's a way to do it too. So let's take that. Color, shader, combine into new, amazing shader. There we go. Very intense. For this one, I think I will actually just take a hue and saturation, lower the value. There we go. Okay, nice. Select those, link materials, and there we go. Now we have that bush set up. I think I'll make this its own group. Barbary. Okay. And now what we'll do, just dupe that entire group. Join the geometry, plug that in there. And we'll go in here and say Barbary instead. Change our seed. And for the millionth time, let's see here. Remember to apply our rotation. Oh. This is Splendor 3.5. I don't know, is 3.6 out? Why do you paint out the branch? The branches are getting painted out because I'm using them for a translucency material. So if you look at this, right, the translucency gives us this illusion of like sunlight coming through the leaves. If I just take our normal material here, you can see it's dark. So what we're doing is we're feeding the color map into a translucency material and then sort of adding it back into our shader, because the BSDF shader doesn't have translucency. But the painting of the branches is to exclude the actual branches, because we don't want translucency on the branches. That would look weird. So this is what we're feeding it as a mask. We're saying, this is what we're feeding it as a mask. I'm saying mix these two together and just give us the color for the leaves as an output, and that's what we'll build our translucency on, instead of building it on everything with the branches. You always thought Henning was the environment artist and I was the character artist. We're both character artists, actually. I just dabble in other things sometimes like this, so it's not that. Wouldn't subsurface do the same, or does it fully catch the light instead of passing it through? The problem with SSS on this is that it's like insanely compute heavy. So translucency, you're kind of faking it a bit. You know, it doesn't give you as realistic of a result as subsurface would do. But an approximation is just fine for this. And oftentimes when I do anything foliage related, I'll do this translucency trick to give you, to give the illusion that light is passing through. You could do the same thing with SSS, but it's going to be very, very taxing on your system. Right, so let's jump back into our geometry nodes here. And we're gonna need to take these out. Oh, okay. That's the problem with putting it in a group, I guess. See if we do this. No, still hidden. Okay. Take it out of the group for now. You can group stuff with Control G and ungroup it with Control Alt G. That's the way to make this work. That's a seed of 5. This needs a seed of 6. This has a seed of 3. Oh. Well, then let's just do... No, let's do a seed of 5 for that. That's cool. Dabble is good. Dabble is good. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I get tired of only doing the same thing over and over again. So, right, where were we? Global density. density Barbary. And then we want scale. Oops. This looks a lot like the Bag of Pie add-on. I'm not familiar with it. I'm assuming it creates foliage then. There we go. We have our barberries. Oh, cool. Oh, I'll definitely check that out. Okay, so let's see. Let's just save to be safe. See what this looks like. This is our new default cube. So just to give you an idea, this cube is around 2 meters tall. So our foliage in here it's pretty large, but it's getting covered quite nicely now. You can see it just adds a splash of color, which is really nice. So it's just not just green in there. And from slightly above, this is what it looks like. Again, I mean, this looks amazing for a flyby. You know, this would look great. Very convincing, actually. Now, one of the cool things about the way that this has been set up is because we have that individual control over our densities. You could say density of the birch down to 1 and density of our pine down to 0.5, for example. Now it's getting really sparse, and then you could start focusing on just the ground instead, and maybe create something that's more focused on the ground, less focused on the forest, for example. But I like this. Maybe the density of the pine is a little much. But that's the scale of the pine, not the density. Idiot. There we go. That's a little more open, which is nice. And predominantly we have birch trees, which is nice. Because like pine forests tend to get very dark. Birch can still be dark, obviously, but it typically is not as dark forest-wise as pine. So let's take density of the birch to 10 to 9. I think that's gonna be good. No, you're not too late. We're still going. But if you have any questions because you came in late, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. Now we need that splash of color from the flowers. I'll just plug it again make sure to head over to flipnormals.com, where right now we're having our summer sale up to 70% off. Thousands of products, assets, tutorials, you know, there's a lot of stuff over there. 23,000 products on sale right now. Yeah, birches it's an awesome tree. Okay, so one thing I actually just want to try is, I have no idea how this works with geometry nodes, but you know, let's try to vary the terrain a little bit. Does that work with if I add a displacement modifier before all of this? Let's see. Great. How does that work? Yeah, I mean, birch is amazing tinder material. It's always my go-to when I'm out. Right, where was I? The perfect forest. I challenge you to find any mistakes in this landscape. It looks perfect. Might do a couple different displacement modifiers here. Okay. The first one. I'll duplicate this. Let's call this dupe large. Or displace large and displace small. I just need to confirm that this actually works in the viewport. Nice. Now that's cool. Okay, so definitely have to push down some of this geometry a little bit because we can't have floating trees, obviously. Good to know. Think about that much would help. There we go. Okay. Let's place our little cube person up on a hill. Okay, so we have our two displacement groups there. Let's up our resolution again, or the density, rather. Whoa. Where are we? There we are. Definitely helped with some variation in the terrain. Man, this is starting to look good. Oh, that really helped, that it's not just a plain nice. Okay, let's try to tackle those flowers now. So you can see how, you know, once we've created this system, now it's really just repeat of a lot of the same stuff. Just getting different assets in, trying to make them work with our scene. Whoops. Should we use? Nah. I was thinking of populating the floor with this kind of grass here, but I think it's just going to be too heavy, really. So we'll skip that for now. And then we'll do, it's a good flower, a daisy flower orange. I think we had that in grass fields, right? So that's a nice one. Flower orange it is. Okay, flower orange. That's what we'll go with. I think we'll do a mix of the daisies and flower orange. Because they use the same texture map, which makes it really easy. 4. Okay. Let's do that again. Isn't that just nice? They already come with textures now. I think that's gonna work really well. Okay. Yep. And this should already now be set up. It's not set up with our translucency though. We'll just quickly do that. There we go, all done. And then bush, barberry bush. Maybe we'll throw these in there, the sage as well. Yeah, you know what? I think we'll throw that in there. And we'll just call it flowers. I think we'll create one final, one final group here just for the flowers. My geometry nodes seem to have disappeared into nothing. I wonder if that's because of our displacement for some reason. Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. So those are geometry nodes. If we swap it, oh, never mind. That's how it works. Cool. Well, that's good. So let's take this, and this is going to be our flowers. Plop that into there, a new seed, and switch this out for our flowers. Hey, I see flowers. Great. Okay, all we need to do is then create new inputs. Density flowers. Oops. We have scale for flowers. We have scale minimum for flowers. Density should default to 1 and the minimum should be 0. The rest we can leave as they are. Scale. Massive flowers. Okay, save. Ramp up our global density. Oof. Computer's starting to struggle now. Might not be able to do 10 for density. I think I saved right before. Yeah, I did. Okay. Good, good. Okay, it did actually manage to do it. But I think we might want to see here. What do we have? Density for flowers. Density barberry 50, 25 maybe. Oh wow. Okay, now I'm starting to see flowers. So let's have a look at this from the perspective of our lonely cube. That's what it looks like right now. Pretty cool. Nice. Obviously there are some things with the ground that can be improved. And I think a lot of that can actually be improved just with some displacement, to be honest. Because right now we have a lot of smooth detail. And I think that's sort of what you're noticing the most. But if we load in a more bespoke displacement map, for example, we could use the displacement based off of the ground texture here. I think that's actually gonna work fine. But let's just have a look at this from above. It's cool. I mean, it works both ways. Do a flyby through here, some nice amount of detail, and then you go down below the canopy. You discover a little world hiding here. That's cool. Okay, yeah, I think that's gonna be all for today. I might have a look at some of the displacement stuff off stream and see what I can do to wrap things up. And then in another stream, try to art direct it a little more and create a scene. So we have a complete scene with some of those cliff rocks to see where we can get to. You'd love to see some viewport compositing. Yeah, that's probably not happening. If compositing for me in Blender is okay, like if I need to use it, but I prefer to not do that. So don't count on that. No, but this is I think I'm pretty happy with this. It turned out pretty interesting. Also, I've never really used geometry nodes before, so it's obviously still a learning experience, trying to figure out as we go along. Just try out the new viewport compositing. Oh, okay, I have to look at that. I don't know anything about that. I don't always keep up to date with all the releases, so I'm not always sure what's being added if I'm not looking for a specific thing. But I'll definitely have a look at that. Because just, you know, some basic color grading goes a long way. Especially with scenes like this, you can do so much. Perfect. All right. I'm going to end the stream now. And then, yeah. I will catch you in the next one. Okay, I'll check out 3.6. Performance. Nice. Awesome. All right. See you later.